Hey, so this tutorial is going to be about programming some electronic drums in your tracks. How to do that, how do you get started. It's all fun and games playing with loops and samples and even using some of the drummer plugins that you can get in Logic. But sometimes you really want to just program your own beat, and it's really difficult to know where to start from. So this is going to be a crash course as to how to get into that. There's one of these videos actually on programming some real drums as well. So if you want to program some real drums, you should check out that video at the end as well. But today we're going to be doing some electronic drums, and this is just a little tutorial example that I knocked up to show you what we're doing today. So we're going to be using Logic, but obviously you can use these principles in whatever DAW you're working with. So I'm just going to move these out of the way for a minute here. We're going to start off up here with this. There you go. It's just one of the bog standard kits that you get loaded in Logic, but some quite cool ones if you play around from the menu on the left here. So here is our drum plugin up the top here. So the first thing you want to be doing, now if you feel really comfortable playing it in on the keyboards, some people do, some people have really fast fingers and they really love playing in the notes. But if you feel that's a little bit tricky for you, and especially if you know you're not that confident about keeping in time, or you don't know how many rhythms you can kind of conjure up, and you've actually got more imagination in your brain than your fingers will allow on the keyboard, then you actually would probably want to start off by doing what we're doing today, which is programming it in. If you want to play it in, fantastic, record it in, quantize it, and then just pick and choose whatever principles in the rest of this video you want to import into that. But we're going to be looking at actually programming it from scratch. So we're going to press T and get a little box of tools up here, and we're going to get a pencil tool. I'm going to draw in a blank bar here. This is where we're going to start with our drum beat. And next we're going to be just dragging a little loop around the top there, because it's going to be really handy when we're playing back what we programmed to actually hear as we're going along. So we've got an empty bar here. We've looped it around the top here, and if we double click on it, it'll take us to our piano roll. Now I've got it set up so you can actually see which bits the kit. If whatever reason you haven't got that there, or you're working in a platform that doesn't show you that, you can obviously just click on it on the left, because this is just a bit of a shortcut, but it's not pivotal. So the first thing we're going to do today, and this is really, really important if you're not too sure about rhythms and things like that. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to switch this back from 32 grid to a 16 one. You'll notice that some of the lines disappear, and it'll make it easier to see what we're doing. There you go. So we're going to start from the beginning, and if drum programming is a little bit hazy and you don't really know where beats should lie or what's happening, this is a really, really good principle to stick with. And it is starting off your beat, because 90% of your drum beats, what you program, are probably going to be centered around this anyway, with a kick on the first beat of the bar. Oh dear, that's a ridiculously long kick. So kick on the first beat of the bar here. On the second beat of the bar, we're going to program in a snare. On the third, we're just going to leave that for the time being. And on the fourth beat of the bar, we're going to program a snare. So there you go, it's the fourth beat there. And even if we just start off with that, you can hear the bare bones of a drum beat. And obviously, it doesn't sound very interesting at the moment, but that's where we're starting off from. Now, in a real drum kit, there are certain rules that you don't kind of pay attention to if you're programming electronic drums. If you're programming a real kit, the next thing you might program is your hi-hats, and you might stick in one on every other 16th note like this. But in electronic music, it's slightly different. So up at the top here, we've got our grid. I'm going to click on 16, and I'm actually going to click 32. And what it does, you'll notice it'll go back to how we had it before, which is we've got twice as many grid lines. So it splits it up into 32 sections, our bar. And what it allows us to do is program more notes in. And the hi-hats, I cannot stress this enough, but there is really once you've got those 3 notes in place, there is really no right or wrong way to program your hi-hats. I'll show you what I mean. I'm just going to click randomly and add in some extra hi-hats. I'm even going to move that out of the way there. And there we go. So completely randomly program my notes in. I'm just going to shorten these so they don't overlap at all. And do the same with these as well. So we've got all our beats in here. That sounds pretty cool. And just to show you exactly what I mean, you can take all these hi-hats and I'm actually going to move them back by 1 semi-quaver, and it should still sound pretty cool because these 3 notes are anchoring this. Sounds a little bit more complicated and complex than it did before, but still sounds okay. So I'm going to move them back actually. And what we're going to try and do with our hi-hats is we're going to be using this little velocity tool down the bottom here. And what the velocity tool does, if you click on a note and click down, it goes to the purple end of the rainbow. If you click up, it goes to the red end of the rainbow. And anything that doesn't really fall, on any of our strong beats in a bar, so 1, 2, 3, 4, we're actually going to turn down. Now, this is just a general rule of thumb. The more you program and the better you get, the more nuanced you can be with this, and you'll work out which notes sound better or worse being accented or not. But when you're first starting out, a really, really easy way to get your hi-hat sounding kind of more human and a bit more interesting and less robotic is, say, every beat, and in fact every half beat as well if you want. So not this one and not this one, every other one. What we can do, and I'm actually going to draw, I'm going to select all of them. Here we go. So I've got all of my hats that don't fall on one of the actual beats in a bar or halfway through a beat. I'm going to turn them all down. And it just gives us that little bit of dynamics. It just makes it a little bit deeper what we're doing and just makes it sound a little bit more interesting. I'm actually going to double this kick up the top here. There we go. Because I like this. I like that kick better than that one. Now, the rule with the kick is, right, we're going to leave the snares as they are for the time being. The rule with the kick is that you can actually introduce as many kicks as you want. And again, it's trial and error. As long as we leave this first one in place and leave these 2 snares where they already are, we can actually program whatever kicks we want in. I'm going to go back to 16 just to make it a little bit easier on the eye. I'm just going to program some random kicks in here. You can program in as many as you want. We'll sort out the velocities in a minute. I'm going to program in, how many is that? 6. It might be too much. It might want to move any around, but you can just start off like this. That sounds pretty cool. And again, the same principle as our hi-hats. Kicks that are actually on the beat, we're going to make a little bit louder. Kicks that are off the beat, we're going to make a little bit quieter. So that's on the beat there. So make that a little bit louder. And I'm going to put on the very first beat of the bar as well. I saw it before. There's a... where is it? There's a sub somewhere around here. There we go. So actually on that first beat of the bar, I'm going to stick in that dirty sub. And actually I'm going to do it on that one as well, because I think it... And it sounds pretty cool. So even if you only got this far, you've actually got some principles here. So you can muck around with your hi-hats to heart's content. You can change the velocities of things that don't fall on the actual on beats in a bar, so 1, 2, 3 and 4, or with your hi-hats, keeping the ones that fall halfway through the bar up the same velocity as well works. So even if you just muck around with that, you can add extra bits in, and this is where it can sound really spicy but can also get very out of hand if you don't know, if you kind of don't watch what you're doing. So what I'm actually doing is the second hi-hat here, and I'm actually going to program a little bit of these hi-hats in as well. And again, I'm just going to click it around. That sounds quite good. I'm going to stick that big sweep thing on there as well. Let me just turn the velocity up a little bit on that one. This is the only one that's slightly different, because these ones, it doesn't matter how short or how long the notes are, because if you just click on that one, the kick's really short, so it doesn't matter if this note here is this long or this long, it's just going to play my kick. Whereas something like that that's actually really long, if I actually shorten that, it would shorten the note itself on a lot of. And that sounds pretty cool. If we go back to our oh, hang on a minute. If we go back to our mixer, so we go back to our range page, we've got our nice little bar of drums here. If we go back to our mixer, you'll notice that on a lot of kits in Logic, they actually come with a little arrow at the bottom. And if you click the arrow, it actually maps out your entire kit. So what you can actually do is you can mix your drum kit individually, and you can add compression or any effect. So on that snare, you could actually add in like a delay if you wanted to. So let's just stick a random sample. Or you could stick the same. It's just something to do. And you can really muck around with your drums and mix them to your heart's content until they're exactly as you want them to be. And this is exactly what I did earlier with this one just underneath. Oops. So if I just drag that down there, this is one that I kind of added a little bit of compression and then just mixed it a little bit better. And that's about it really. The last thing that I did up here, just to show you something slightly different, is obviously I can just copy and paste that like that, and I can have it as long as I want it. The only thing to do sometimes though is it's a little bit boring as a listener if you're just listening to the same loop over and over again, because your ears pick it up quite quickly that you're just listening to the same beat repeated. So what you can actually do is you can click on your beat machine, and you can click on the actual box here, and I can actually change each individual bar. So if I select those first two bars and get them up here, they're ever so slightly different. They're nearly the same, but the second bar, I mean, I guess the first thing you can tell is that I've got rid of this long note here. But even the kicks, if you look at the kicks here and look at the kicks here, there's some extra kick notes in here that aren't in the one over there, and the hi-hats over here are just a little bit busy. I'm not reinventing my beat down here, I'm actually just embellishing it a little bit. So if I play these back to back, you'll notice the first and the second bar are ever so and then just underneath, just to add a little bit of depth to it, I stuck a drummer track on here and turned off absolutely everything on it apart from the shaker. So I've just got like a human sounding shaker on here. add a little bit of compression and reverb, and if you just blend it in the background here, it just adds a little bit of depth to the frequency range, because it just opens up the top end a little bit, adds a little. What you can also do, and depends on how you feel about your individual beat itself, the last thing is an optional thing. So we can get our drum beat up here, the one that we programmed, and you might be really happy with the way it sounds because you've got those different velocities. It's really intricate and interesting, and more importantly, cannot stress this enough, we have not moved our snare from the 2 and the 4 or our kick from the first beat of the bar here, and all of this goes around those 3 beats. But the last thing you can do, if you wanted to make it sound just a little bit more human, and just with those tiny timing errors that you get with a human drum beat, you can draw a box around all of them, and you can go to functions and you go MIDI transform, and under MIDI transform there's something called humanize. And if you click on humanize, it looks a little bit complicated when you first open it up, but it's really simple. Number one, it's going to slightly randomize the position of our notes by a real tiny amount, but enough to introduce that little timing errors that you would get if a real person was playing this in on some drum pads, or you were trying to emulate a real drummer and the slight timing issues that a drummer would have. And then next you've got velocity, and it'll slightly randomize the velocity because maybe you've copied a few notes, so a lot of them might be the same. So this will slightly change a few of the velocities. It'll keep the rough feel of the loud notes being loud and the quiet notes being quiet, but it'll just change them a little bit so that the quiet notes are ever so slightly different from one another. And the last one, it changes the length a bit, but that really doesn't make any difference at all with our drums. So what you can do is when you've got a box random, you can just click operate, and what it's done, let's just have a zoom in here. You'll notice now that some of these are ever so slightly behind the beat, or that one's just ever so slightly in front of the beat. If we listen to it now, there should be just a slight, just human. And that kind of grooves a little bit more than it did before. So in a nutshell, that's it really. So hopefully if you can get this loaded up and you can watch along and you can do what I've done, you should end up with a nice sounding drum beat. Obviously I just went for one particular tempo and one particular kit, but I'm hoping that you can see how this would translate to different genres. And obviously if you get stuck, then you can go and have a listen to some of the music that you want to emulate, and you can try and train your ears to pick up the drum beats and the way that the patterns work in those particular genres. But hopefully you've followed along and this has helped you out, and it's hopefully clarified a little bit about programming drums. Like I said, there's also one on programming real sounding drums with a lot of the same principles, but with a few slight differences in terms of using real kits. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you like these videos, then please subscribe because I'm releasing them regularly. But apart from that, thanks, bye.